Well, howdy, folks. Welcome to the Injured Worker Show, where we give you the skinny, the lowdown, and 5-0 on what's happening to injured workers in America. Better yet, we give you some solutions to stop the war on them. And today's topic's going to be about Washington State Emily Wicks, boss lady, how she fails workers in Snohomish County, Washington State, and America. Not right, boss lady. Not right at all, boss lady. And so I would like to share some information here today of how I've contacted my state rep, Emily Wicks, on several occasions. And we're going to learn a little bit about her today, as I have to take time to learn about her. I didn't really know much about her until recently when her legislative aide pressed harassment charges on me, and basically was trying to get me criminally jailed because they, the Democrats, want me silenced as I speak up for federal human rights for workers in America, because they'd rather have pushed their state initiative, whole Washington, than to get honest about a war on injured workers in America and the needed minimum federal standards. So yes, let's learn a little bit about this representative who would rather jail me than take even, I don't know, 30 minutes, 45, maybe an hour, and listen to a couple parts of the videos that I've put up. I put up some real good ones that I've shared with her on several things, and she chooses to pick out parts of these emails to jail me over because I get angry because they're not hearing me. And they focus on the anger rather than even taking time to watch these videos that CMAR Mental Behavioral Health, Claudia Legre, and their whole team, their legislative liaisons, Claudia Legre, who breaks her head with representative folks like Emily Wicks and U.S. Representative Rick Larson and Ortiz-Self. So it's frustrating as I go on with the story here how these people are all tied in with my mental health care that inspired me also, because I'm trying to get a truth told that none of these Democrats want told how our health care is being used as tools to harm and hurt us and rob us of our benefits. So let's go into this bio of this state representative of mine, new one. She's only been here a couple months, I guess, or so, maybe 6 months, I don't know. New on the scene otherwise. And I wouldn't really have given her the time of day, except for my CMAR mental health folks said to speak to the local representatives, these new ones that are coming in, and get them to help you. And instead of helping me, it seems like they're all tied in with the Democrat echelon that has been trying to silence me the whole time to start with. So I'm going to see if I can transfer over here, and we'll bring up, first we'll bring up, let me see if I can make this small for a moment. I think we're here, and I think you're seeing this, so I hope so. This is what I sent to my lawmaker today because I want to document it. Because one thing I was taught as a nurse by the state of Washington is to document everything. That's what I have done with my YouTube channel, and that is what my mental health therapist said I should do, and how I should do it without any cussing or any vulgarness. And I have done that with the last 20 videos I've made that are pretty clear and precise and show how harm to humans in America are happening and how state lawmakers are failing us, just like the federal government has told us. And as I try to get this truth told, folks like these, June Robinson, Mike Sells, Emily Wicks, all stand in the way. And so I sent to her this email this morning to the Washington State Legislature and basically said, whole Washington is used to kill our injured workers fed issue for 5 years now. You and Habib have some explaining to do in regards to Emily Wicks, because she used to work with Lieutenant Governor Habib when I was calling out Lieutenant Governor Habib and State Representative Ortiz-Self and CMAR Medical Claudia Legre for using Latinos on Legislative Day 2018, I believe it was. Might have been 2017, but one of those years. They only used them, and I put up a video about this to spin the narrative and say Washington State was not failing injured workers, which was not the truth. So they have some explaining to do. I'm also going to put in here one more, I'll read the rest of it here. Washington state lawmakers seek to jail workers' comp / SSDI whistleblower rather than represent us. And then I share a video about that I put up, and people can see here a full video where I explain how they basically have failed us for the last 5 years. And then I asked her to start representing me in America's workers / patients, not the state Republican bizmen you're aiding with whole Washington. You lead our sheep astray, and you and Habib cover up using evidence on Latino Legislative Day with Ortiz-Self. and I go on to share some videos with her. Basically, I tell her to start hearing the videos that CMAR Medical told me to make for you. Do not use my former charges as an excuse, former criminal charges of harassment, basically, as an excuse for not representing the rest of America's workers here. Stop using one injured worker's rage, anger, and grief as an excuse for your failure to represent all of America's workers and patients across this nation. Even as a state lawmaker, you can still speak up for our human rights and our federal human rights. The same way you do for a $15 an hour wage, the same way you do for voting rights, the same way we do for the LGBT rights, the same way we do for a lot of things. We can do that for workers too, boss lady. The truth is coming out, young lady. I say that because she's like 20 years younger than me, at least 18 years younger. So it's frustrating to me when I have this lady stepping up, who's basically her jobs, as I go on and show your bio here, has been to work for the Washington state government, working with Jay Inslee, working with Governor Habib, and now she's got herself a job as one of our state representatives. Yet the only business she seems to have did start was a business to start help other, and that's what we'll go into next. So let me finish this up here. The truth is coming out, young lady. You do not get away with lying about a nurse like me, which I was an awesome nurse. I got hurt and I told the truth and been telling the truth ever since in a community and a society that don't want that truth told. I was awesome, and some of you have tried to destroy that, and I won't allow that. And I'm honest, and you are not, boss lady. Anyways, and then how Washington single payer killed our workers, killed our human rights issues. A video I sent to them, to the Washington state legislator, to please take time to hear me, a human being, reaching out in our community for representatives like Emily Wicks to please hear about harm and pain to the workers in America and the solutions we need that even Senator Sanders told us we need. Even now, I have a nurse speaking out telling us that this whole Washington ruse is just that, a ruse. Single payer is a playbook out of Republican agenda that we go state by state. Yes, fight for single national payer on a national level, but to use state payer as a distraction is just that, a distraction, distracting our sheep, leading them astray where you don't get honest about real issues like the harm to injured workers and our needed minimum federal standards. So I'm going to set that one to, I'm just, we're done with that one. And this was also sent to June Robinson, who's my senator now, I guess, and Representative Mike Sells, who's actually stepping down at some point here, or may have already. I'm not sure who's filling his spot. I'm hoping it's not another Democrat that's just basically a Republican businessman pretending to be Democrats who don't really care about workers in America, as our unions in Snohomish County are doing when they sell out to these people and can't get honest about a war on workers. And where police officers need PTSD coverage in this country, it needs to be consistent. Not some states want to give them some human rights and other states don't want to give us human rights. And it's up to the business community and folks like Emily Wicks, boss lady, who gets to decide whether or not we're going to get PTSD to cops or not. We do that here in Washington State, but only because we had people like me standing up and screaming out in the report in 2015 that said we needed some federal standards. We can't help our brothers and sisters in these other states like Arizona and I don't know, maybe Alabama and other ones that may or may not cover PTSD. Shouldn't get to pick and choose. It should be a human right that we have that's on a federal law that these states don't get to come along and have people like Emily Wicks pick and choose and decide if we're going to honor human rights on the federal level or not for our workers. So I'll leave it at that. I am trying to contact state lawmakers. I've been nice, sweet, and kind about it. And so we'll go on here and let's look at this is the small biz that my lady owns. It's called Waffle. Would you look at that? And she goes in there and it's a community co-working space for women, entrepreneurs, and business professionals. So mainly I'm all cool with it. There's no problem. Sounds like a great idea. I'm just surprised that you've had nothing but state jobs for yourself, but yet you want to go out in the community and tell these people to get themselves some kind of a Uberized job, maybe, and be self-employed Uberized drivers. And seems like a Republican narrative here we're spinning once again. But I digress. Boss lady, that's good for if you want to do that. But when I'm coming to you, and that's her company that she has. Let's get into her bio here. Wicks is the owner and founder of Bossy at the core. Bossy at the core. Now imagine that. You are bossy at the core, girl. You are a boss. That is awesome for you, and that works for you. And I think that works good for the Kardashians as well. You boss girls go. What I don't like, ma'am, is you and my Democratic Party being a cock block, basically, as a business cock block, to me getting the human rights issue for workers in America on the table so we can get them addressed. But anyways, co-working small business, and the president of the National Women's Political Caucus of Washington. National Women's Political Caucus of Washington. Yet you don't want to talk about minimum federal standards and how gender bias for women in workers' comp is a 10%, where I get 10% from my body parts than you do as a female. Boss. Boss lady. Yeah. Wow. National Political Caucus. That would mean you want to talk about some federal issues too, ma'am, don't you? But you don't want to talk about my issue, the workers' issue, because you're the boss lady. She worked as a legislative aide for Lieutenant Governor Habib during that time in Washington State Legislature and as the Deputy Finance Director for the 2012 gubernatorial campaign for Governor Jay Inslee. Her professional exposure also includes work in communications. So for Mary School District and marketing and communications for firms like PPR, something like that. So she's a communication specialist. Isn't that awesome? And here I'm trying to share a video that my mental health therapist said to share with people like her so I could be heard, but she don't want to take time to hear me because I've been charged with some harassment charges in the past for screaming and yelling at people who don't want to hear me. As I'm yelling at lawmakers, doctors, and judges about the harm to me as a human being and others in our community and the need for a solution that even Senator Sanders told us we need, that you have all went silent on since 2015. The bullies are silent Senator Sanders and silent Patty Murray at this point in our community because they aren't stepping up and helping me to address people like this, the boss lady, who would rather jail me and take me away from my family and my benefits away from me than get honest about the need for some minimum federal standards as she chairs the National Women's Political Caucus in Washington State. It is egregious. It's intellectualism. It's ageism, and it's disgusting. But I digress. I will going to try to be calm and polite, and that's what my wife asked me to do, and so I will do that. It's just disgusting to me. This is the Republican arm here telling us, it's disgusting because I feel like these Berkes and even my Democrats seem to be filtering these people that want to basically belittle Republicans in my party. They're more concerned with the businessman's rights than they are with the human rights of workers on a federal level. And I'm sorry, as a state lawmaker, you can still talk about that, not participate in the exploitation of us. Whether it's the immigrants you use on Latino legislative day or labor in general. It's called exploitation, boss lady. And you need to wake up and hear me, this communication director for my Democratic Party. It seems like in several positions here, you are communications director. And we go on to see where she had some legislative priorities, of course, in Washington. Somewhere in here, she goes on to talk that she's also has political science, and that her and her husband love political strategy. What is that political strategy? To plant biz-minded folks into my Democratic Party flying the Senator Sanders flags behind their heads? Is it to put biz-minded folks in there that will spit in the face of injured workers and even a former nurse as he's blowing the whistle on harmed humans? Yet you do not want that told because just like the federal government has told us, Washington State is one of 32 states that are failing our injured workers. We tried to make some corrections, and we're doing that, and that's great. But that doesn't negate the fact that our workers in America still need some minimum federal standards. And people like Emily Wicks, boss lady, would have her aide jail me to silence me, rather than get honest about the thing that this union nurse has just told us, that the whole Washington is a ruse, and that it leads our Democrat sheep in circles for things they will not get. As we've seen, some of the Berkes are trying to plant Tamburini Borellis, who are Trumpsters, and Scott Staffney, who is a Republican war comp lawyer, into our political apparatus. I call foul on Jason Call. I call foul on Emily Wicks. I call foul on Representative Mike Sells, who was in my case, who knows this shit is screwed up, and nobody's done nothing. Governor Inslee has jumped in, and yes, and that's why the Larry Brown, who's also retiring from the Washington State Labor Council, says, "Gee, Jaron, you got a lifetime pension." Well, that would be great if you didn't allow your local man at SSDI to try and rape me for 3 years of my benefits that I was due because I got cost shifted because I also won my SSDI because I was telling the truth as people were lying in my shit. The same people that this medical community and the whole Washington nurses will cover for, and the medical board, state med board, who condones this systemic patient abuse and state codified oppression. I'm calling foul on CMAR, and that's where we're going to go into here, because this lady also worked for Habib, Lieutenant Governor Habib, as I was calling out CMAR, my mental health folks, my mental health team, for right here. This is Ortiz-Self, my CMAR mental health, Democrats, all got together. As I was begging them to tell the truth and put our issue on the table that Senator Sanders had told us, because he just told us in 2015 we needed it, they all refused to, try to spin a narrative, and they use immigrants as what kills me the most, even though CMAR knows my father-in-law was a Mexican immigrant, worked to death at Walmart and by the state. Let's watch the video.
Can workers' comp harm? 400 Washington state injured workers seem to think so and tell us that it is harming them. Yet on Latino Legislative Day, our Washington state lawmakers and the Latino Civic Alliance all tried to tell us Washington state LNI is not broken and that Latinos don't have to fear reporting their on-the-job injuries. Unfortunately, that's just not the case here in Washington state. Also, on that same day, not only did our Washington state lawmakers like Ortiz-Self and Governor Habib not tell us the truth about a war on injured workers, they failed to tell us about the needed federal oversight. Unfortunately, Lieutenant Governor Habib and State Representative Ortiz-Self don't want to tell us about the needed federal oversight or the fact that about the demolition of workers' comp. How do we have a war on injured workers in this country? And when they failed to tell us about the war on 400 injured farm workers in the state of Washington, and when they tried to deliberately spin the narrative and had a Latino on the agenda for Latino Legislative Day was to have CMAR come and tell us, talk about mental health issues and talk about how to contact your legislators. And then also during the same day, they were going to have a workers' comp attorney tell us Latinos in Washington state do not have to fear reporting their on-the-job injuries, which was not true, and that work comp attorney never did show up. So, but that was the intent of the whole day, was to spin the narrative that 400 injured farm workers are not being hurt when they are, and to try and not address the need for the minimum federal oversight and the harm done to injured workers across America, not just in Washington state, but all across America. So I feel it's a complete failure by the Democratic Party at this point in Washington state not to step up and represent the injured workers of America with the minimum federal oversight that Senator Sanders and Patty Murray both told us we needed as of 4 years ago. And Tom Perez also told us we need that as well. So we'll leave it at that. I just wanted to educate people on what was really happening here in the state of Washington and how we failed to represent 400 injured farm workers intently on our Washington State Latino Legislative Day. And I just feel that it's not really fair to Latinos or injured workers. Our Democrats should be stepping up and telling us the truth about this, not telling us that nothing's happening here. Thank you.
So, let's see if I can get things transferred back over here. There we go. And I think that's pretty much it in a nutshell there. And now I'm having to deal with somebody who's my new state lawmaker, Representative Emily Wicks, who seems to pride herself on being the boss lady. Well, boss lady, you need to get honest with America's workers. This ability and patience, let's make that clear, because I'm a former nurse, boss lady. And while you've been feeding at the state trough here, I was wiping ass for that 15 years at the state trough. Well, and private hospitals, if you want to count Providence too. 15 years in the healthcare. The last 5 of it was at the University of Washington Medical Center. Nonetheless, I know healthcare. I know patients. I know human beings. You, ma'am, may know how to be the boss lady. You know may how to put these campaigns together and kiss up to Democratic state lawmakers. But what you don't know, ma'am, is how to call them out. And that's what needs to be done, just like Senator Sanders told us. Call him out too. That's what he said. Don't listen to your handlers. Listen to we the people. And I'm sorry, Emily Wicks, when you are trying to silence someone like me, I am we the people. I was a nurse. I was a good human being. I was screwed. I've told the truth. See, my mental health knows that. SSDI knows that. The word comp judges know that. But apparently, our state lawmakers, like when we had these failed school systems that were giving injured workers diplomas, fake diploma mills, that they were sending them to, that the lawmakers like Karen Kaiser knew for 12 years has been going on, but they did nothing about it until King 5 spoke up. But King 5 will only get on us about certain issues. King 5 won't get on us about the need to amend federal standards. They get trophies and awards for reporting on Hanford agent workers. And Bob Ferguson, the Attorney General, will help the injured workers at Hanford because it's a federal, and they go up against the federal government on that. But injured workers in Washington State have to fight Bob when we get hurt on the job itself. Yeah. We need people like Emily Wicks to speak up and tell the truth here, not try and have me silenced and put in a jail and robbed from my family. As she says, her and her aide fear me. No, what I fear is Washington State lawmakers lying to us about whole Washington like Bob Hasagawa and Michael Ilias, who, let's face it, we were told took a red pill and drank the red pill. Yet he still keeps climbing the ladder here in our democratic apparatus. As he will fight for LGBT rights on a federal level, but not say a word about our workers' need minimum federal rights. As he one day hopes to probably be a U.S. lawmaker, unless he's so happy being entrenched because he's weaned on the Edmonds City Chamber of Commerce. I can't remember which one it is, but the boy has been weaned and was raised by the City Chambers of Commerce. And when the LGBT community, and who is it, Teresa Carlos, who's my Democratic queer queen from Illinois, seems to tell me Illinois is just fine and tells my Democrats not to hear me. There is something wrong with that when Illinois has a plant and the biz lady has their plants, but nobody's doing anything the workers were told would need to be done by the United States Congressional Research Service, a bilateral commission in 2020, Senator Sanders and Patty Murray and Tom Perez in 2015, yet everybody's been silent since then. They ran for president. Trump did. He said nothing. Sanders said nothing for 2 presidential bids. Biden said nothing in his presidential bid. Jay Inslee ran for president, said nothing in his presidential bid. Joe Manchin said nothing in his bid, although I begged him to as well. At the end of the day, state lawmakers in America are all Joe Manchins when it comes to workers' comp. Thank you, and have a good day. And Emily Wicks, you don't have to fear me, but you do have to fear the truth, because that's what we're going to start telling here in America, whether my local lawmakers in my local Snohomish County Democratic apparatus likes it or not, because they seem to be protecting the medical status quo in whole Washington and the Republican agenda more than they care about the human beings and patients across this nation. This is a ruse by the Republican Party to lead our Democratic sheep in circles for something they will never get. And Emily Wicks, political science major, Jason Call, political science major, all know this. That's why it's egregious when I have my Democrats being nothing but big Republican Alec R's, putting the state rights, the bizman states' rights before my workers' federal human rights. Boss lady, listen up and hear me. Watch the videos. Do not use my former incarceration for harassment, that basically some of those were bogus charges along the way as well by Emily Wick type folks who are elite intellectual snobs in our community, who are more concerned with getting people self-employed. But a businessman in the business community, then she is about workers in our community. Sorry, the Democratic Party has lost its way. And it's because it's got boss ladies in the fray. Have a good day. And boss lady, why don't you go hook up with the Kardashians and peddle that shit? Stop peddling to my workers in Washington State or America. Go peddle that on your Republican side, Emily Wicks, because people like Jay Inslee shouldn't be promoting you. He should be calling you out, like I'm calling you out, Jay Inslee. You have screwed me and screwed me royally. You need to clean this shit up and do it now. Have a good day.